Hello, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Broski Doodles podcast. With you, like always, Kiko Flo, Kiko Cervantes. Thank you for tuning in and listening to ramble for a bit. I have a few interesting topics to touch on today. We recently had the passing of Maradona, a very prominent person and figure in the world of football. And I want to talk about a bit of the reactions that I saw from people. And I also wanted to talk about a new mini series that I watched on Netflix. It's called The Queen's Gambit. I thought it was great work, and I wanted to touch upon some of the concepts and topics that they touched on it. Before I get to all that, I wanted to share with you some of my experiences that I've had in the recent days with my neighbors. I think that, in Europe, neighbors are more part of your life than maybe in the Americas because of the amount of space and restriction that you have, right? It's not as private as you would want it to be in Europe because, it was all built like back in the day. So it's all very crowded, if you live in the center of a city in Europe, you're rarely gonna see houses. It's all gonna be, apartments, sort of more like New York type style, but just very crushed into each other. And recently I had some new neighbors move. And, they're very festive. They have a lot of music all the time. I believe they are Colombian, I think. And it's fine. Like, I myself play music loud. And by law here, you can pretty much have music up to midnight, and it's fine. It doesn't bother me per se. A lot of times they're cooking, so I even get the smell of their food. Very ethnic Latin food. And for a while, I guess the apartment next door hadn't had people in it, so I never really felt any neighbors. So now I'm sort of feeling it. And I started to think, what would be the correct approach when you have neighbors? Is it either try to meet them and like have a good relationship with them, or not, get involved too much? Because I started thinking, if I get too friendly, I don't want them to think that they can approach me at any time, like to bother me. I'm a person that I don't like to be bothered. I don't like, to be. Yeah, I don't bother anybody. Just don't bother me either. So, maybe if you are friendly with them, then they have they get clingy or some shit. So, I don't know. I just thought it was funny. I know that in the U.S., if you live in houses, it's a little less of a chance that you're going to be dealing with neighbors. But here in apartments and very close quarters, it is something that you live with. You hear people. I had another sort of situation with another neighbor that has a similar apartment number than mine's, but not really. It's just that the delivery people from Amazon and everything that I order, to be honest, bro, they're just fucking retarded. Like, they don't look at the fucking paper. Like, not only do I put the correct address, but I even put like a note letting them know, like, sort of like, I expect for you to get confused, maybe, so I'm clarifying this is how to get to my door. And they always go and knock on other people's door. And recently Amazon has gotten like a new thing where they deliver shit like Saturday and Sunday, like a fucking 9 a.m. So some neighbor has been being bothered a lot. They call on his fucking apartment to deliver my shit, and he says that it's not him. So recently they delivered some shit here, but they had gone to his apartment first. So then he came to talk to me like, oh man, you're putting the address wrong. They're always knocking on my door to deliver stuff. And I'm just like, hey dude, to be honest, I put exactly where the address is, and these motherfuckers just don't follow it, It ain't my fault. I feel you. Like I said, I'm clarifying it on the address when I order shit. But these motherfuckers don't read it, And he wanted to get, the defensive side, like, like, oh man, this happens all the time. If otherwise I'm gonna like just receive the packages. And I'm just like this piece of shit person, right? Like when you meet people and you're like, oh, I get it. You're a piece of shit person, right? You have mental problems, right? You have a chip on your shoulder, so you want to act like the tough guy in the situation. I don't give a fuck if he wants to keep a fucking package. I'll just write to Amazon. I tell him, yo, I didn't receive shit, so give me back my money or send it to me again. But the fact that this motherfucker got like that, I just told him like, oh, dude, I like your attitude. You do what you know. What you do, you think what you should. You do what you think you should, And that's it, I wanted to sort of go with it in a passive way, and to be honest, I was very, decent. But if he had approached me with a more like, hey man, these people are knocking on my door every day, like for real, dude, like I don't. Okay, maybe I'll talk to you with that same tone. But if you come to me like with some bullshit, like, oh, you're putting the address wrong, all this shit, it's just like, nah, I'm not. And then he's like, oh, I'm gonna receive the packages or whatever. So me and my girl, we've been thinking of moving for a while because, I don't like living in the ghetto. We live in a pretty rough area. I haven't had any issues ever, and to be honest, like, I mean, there's like crimes and shit, robberies, and I haven't experienced that. And it's not above me. Like, it's shit that I think about, and I do want to go to a better place. Obviously, for financial situations, you need to make compromises. But we've been thinking of moving for a while, and like, it's fucked because a lot of times I would say shit like, I live in a working neighborhood, where everybody's working class and all this shit. Like, that's cool. You live with people that are hustling and grinding every day to make it. And then certain shit happens. Like, for example, I had this situation with the neighbor, but that's just one thing. And then, like, you see other stuff around. You see, like, just people that don't behave, that don't know how to live in a society. And then you just like, fuck, man. Like, I really wanted to, like, think that I could live here and like with working people, but then I'm just like, nah, man, fuck this. Like, so I mean, obviously I want to move just to have a bigger place. I want to have a dedicated place for the studio. From what you see here, hopefully it looks great to you, but I am sort of doing what I can with the space that I have. So I do want to go to a bigger place, and I've been thinking about it. But certain shit has been happening where it makes it even more clear, like, yeah, man, like fuck it, I gotta get out the hood. And this brings me to another topic, which has to do with the restrictions. For example, in Spain, how hard it is to rent a place, right? There's so many requirements, right? And also the requirements that they ask are hard to get because in Spain, a lot of jobs are shit. So you don't get like a right out good contract, like a permanent contract. It's always like some temporary shit. So what happens is the people that want to rent the apartments, they ask for like a certain threshold that you need to make, that everyone that's going to live there has to have like a fucking golden contract that says they're never going to fire you. And it's just a lot of shit, right? Part of the reasons why I hadn't moved yet, one of them being like, I mean, it is a funny situation with, the world situation happening with, what's happening. The fact that jobs, there's a crisis, jobs are less. So, I'm not even sure if I'm going to be staying where I work or if they might fire me. I mean, nobody knows, But also I was waiting for my girlfriend to get a good contract because it is required for us like to get a good place. You're gonna ask for a bunch of shit. So now we're sort of in a good position where we have a good base to go and rent whatever we want. I mean, of course, within our price range, but paper-wise, requirements-wise, we have good jobs, good enough earnings, But what happens is, it's taking me a while to get to that point But before that, I mean, I was still a responsible person working. I'm still gonna pay the rent, but I just can't get a job that gives me a good contract. They just give you shitty contracts, right? So what ends up happening is the government gets involved, right? And in Spain it's very lefty, right? Which, hey, I'm sort of in the middle. I don't want to get in a discussion. I think there's things to grab from both sides. But one thing that the left likes to do is just be very compassionate, right? Or at least seem to be. So they make it so that if you cannot pay for your rent and you stop paying it, it's very hard for the landlord to kick you out, right? Because this whole social, moral argument comes into place where oh, you cannot kick them out. And if they have kids, the people that are as a landlord, the people that rent your place, if they have kids and they stop paying, man, it becomes exponentially harder to get them out, because social laws, help the people inside. And I understand the difficulties of not having money to to pay for where you live and shit. But what happens is that the very people at the bottom get fucked over the most when you try to implement these laws. And let me explain why. I've been living in a ghetto for a while because this was the only apartment that I could get with the type of job contracts that I had. I had a lot of non-temporary jobs, but they gave me temporary contracts and they just renewed it a lot because, that's what happens when you have an economy that's not really thriving. So, if you want to get into that, if the economy is thriving, then companies are going to battle each other out to get the best workers. And for you to get a best worker, you cannot offer them a temporary contract. You have to offer them a good contract. But when shit is not going well, the workers will take any fucking contract because they need a job, right? So that was my position. So I could only get the apartment where I'm at now. Now, what happens is, if I want to get a better place that I can afford, they don't want to give it to me because I don't have the guarantees. And that sounds like it's fucked up, right? From the owner to be so demanding of me to prove that I'm going to be able to pay. But what happens is, the landlord has to take all those precautions. Because if I end up not paying and wanting to stay, it's going to take months, even years, for that person to kick me out of the apartment. Because the law allows me to have, as a renter, that facility. And this is the fucked up part. If the owner knew that by the law, if you don't pay for the rent, they can kick you out with the police coming and kicking you out, then the owner wouldn't give a fuck about demanding so many requirements, because he knows that, look, I don't even care if you don't have a job. I'm going to the extreme, but let's say you're renting to someone that doesn't have a job, right? But he has enough money to pay for it. You're like, well, you do you. If you cannot pay 1 month, then you're out, and that's it, right? But because the owner knows that they could actually leave that person there for years before you can kick him out, the owner is going to ask for 1,000 requirements, right? So what ends up happening is that the people at the bottom that would need for someone to allow them to rent their house or their apartment, well, now they cannot even get an apartment because the landlord is asking them for contracts and requirements that they do not have. But they could pay for the place, but they just don't have the requirements to make the landlord feel secure that if you don't pay, I'm fucked as a landlord, because to kick you out is a fucking mission. So I understand the side of the landlord, and because of this is why I think this type of laws, and this happens everywhere, laws that protect too much the renter, that what ends up happening is then it's going to be a lot harder for you to be able to rent a place because they're going to take precautions. As someone coming from the bottom, started from the bottom, now we're here. It's really started from the bottom. Now we're in the, almost at the bottom, but a little bit higher. That's where we at. But, started from the bottom, now we're here. starting from the bottom, I much rather you as a landlord being able to kick me out of your house as soon as I cannot pay rent, but knowing that you will rent it to me easily. Because as a worker from the bottom, if I have the ease of being able to get a place to live, that's gonna make it a lot easier for me to climb the ladder of progress. If I cannot even get a place to live because the job I have is not secure enough, and because of that the landlord is scared that if I don't have enough money to pay, I can stay in their place and practically fuck up the owner's finances, because landlords also need to eat and pay shit, then they're not gonna rent it to me. So what you create is this fucking cycle of bullshit where the owners need to protect themselves, the renters don't have enough requirements, and you're stuck in this loop where it's so hard to get a place to live. So, yeah. I know these aren't the main topics that I wanted to talk about, but I think this shit, just fucking hit me, Like how certain laws can just fuck up, so much shit. So, well, anyways. We had recently a situation, well, not a situation, I mean, it's a pretty historic event. Diego Maradona, the football player, Argentinian football player. If you don't know who he is, you might be a bit lost in life. But, someone who's considered one of the best football players in history passed away a few days ago. And it was very interesting to see the different responses and reactions from people about this death, Normally, I mean, it is Diego Maradona, so I do gotta, when in Rome. But normally when a celebrity passes away, most of what you see on social media is just positive things, If anything, maybe too positive. People that didn't even know the person are like, oh, I love your songs and shit. And with Maradona, I mean, it wasn't the exception. You had a lot of people praising him and talking about, how he influenced not only the world of football, but the world of sports. I myself am not a fan of Maradona, but I understand the impact that he had, right? And what was interesting about his death is that you had half of the people saddened by the situation and, praising him, honoring him, remembering all of his achievements and inputs to the world of football and athletics in general. And then the other half is people hating on him, right? Because for people that don't know, Maradona, outside of the field, had a very dark personal life, to say the least. And, I'm not going to talk about this in a judging manner. It's really, because I think everyone has skeletons in their closets. So, but I'm going to touch on both sides because it's interesting with this one. And celebrities in general, when they pass, it's very strange what happens because you feel this connection to the person even though you don't know them. And I'll talk about some passings that stuck on me. So with Maradona, you have so many people hating on him because, well, he was a drug addict. He was, not the best with his family. From what I understand, that there are news and reports that he was violent with his wife or women, that he, slept with underage girls. So, he's far from from polemic situations. I mean, this guy apparently was wild, a wild party guy, and all of this is allegedly, right? This is what you can look in the internet and see. On another note, and this is, I guess, a reason why you would say I personally would hate this guy, is that he supported the communist movement in Venezuela and in many countries in South America. But in Venezuela, right, he was good friends with Chavez, the regime leader in where I'm from, right, where I was born, Venezuela. So because of that, you would think, I mean, I always thought, like, man, this guy's so stupid, like, for supporting that. And maybe in the past, when I was younger, I would have had certain feelings of hatred towards the guy. But when this happened, it was strange because I actually felt sorry for him. And not that I got mad at the negative reaction, because it doesn't bother me. I believe free speech is a thing. So I support it all the way, all the time. But, you would see a lot of people putting memes of his death, right? In a funny, negative way. And I felt like, you know what, man? I don't feel like even close to doing something like that. And again, I'm not judging people who made fun of his death and who he was in a private life. But it just felt like in that moment of death, even the shittiest of people, I feel like, should have some peace or respect. I don't know if that's the word. And I know that this is weird to say because, for example, when we talk about like someone like Hitler, if he dies, right, it's a celebration, right? Because this person killed so many people, caused so much damage to the world, that his death means that a lot of people will not die, right? So you can understand that. When Chavez died, who was the president of Venezuela for many years, corrupt, communist, populist leader that caused a lot of damage and stole all the rich from Venezuela, when he died, the people that opposed him, even including me, were happy, and at the time I was younger as well. So when you're younger, you're a bit more like aggressive towards things, right? So I was like, yeah, fuck him, he died, fuck, because that meant that it was closer for the regime to deteriorate, to fucking fall down, and for my country to be free again and have a democracy, right? So you could understand that as well. Now, with Maradona, and this again is my personal feeling, when I found out about his death and I started seeing all these memes, there were even memes of him dancing with Chavez, right? Because they used to like chill, and memes like, oh, now they're dancing in hell together or whatever. And I just think that he destroyed his life, but I don't see how he necessarily hurt anybody else. If it is true that he was with younger girls, I could see how that, they're victims that could be fucked up about it. His family that suffered through his violence, if that was something that happened, I could understand how they were. But when you talk about Chavez or Hitler, I mean, these are people that caused literally people to die, like a lot of people to die and live shitty lives. With Maradona, it's like, as much as I don't like the guy, and even in the football world, again, I didn't see him play. So he didn't really affect me much in the football world, like maybe Cristiano Ronaldo, Messi, Ronaldinho did, like because of my generation. But I don't like I never really liked the guy, and the fact that he was involved with the fucking regime in Venezuela wasn't something that I enjoyed. But even like him supporting the regime in Venezuela, I just don't think he knew what he was like really supporting. Like, you gotta understand, like, Maradona comes from a very poor place in Argentina, right? Argentina already being a place that has lived many crises, he came from like one of the poorest places in Argentina. And Argentina, I'm not gonna get into the reasons why, but it mainly has to do with Perón and Peronismo, or Peronism, which is like the belief that a president in the past, Perón, had, which was very socialist and I would say even towards communism. But they're very lefty. And not everyone in Argentina, of course, but if you come from the lower classes, then it's even more engraved in you to be left, to expect help from the government, to think that people who have money are fucking pieces of shit. So this guy coming from that, and also coming from a place where the people in power are corrupt and steal money. So I can totally understand how if you come from the hood in Argentina, you're like, yeah, fuck these motherfuckers. We need help for these people. Because that is the case. These people do need help. So I don't even think this guy really understood like why he supported the regime in Venezuela. He just thought, well, these guys are in the left. They say they want to help the people. So fuck it. Like, that seemed to be my camp. So I don't even fucking blame him for that, because I really don't think that he had the mental capacity to understand that far. This was a football player, that liked partying, cocaine, and women, And really, I can't be judging him for that shit. Obviously, the underage part, which I'm not 100% sure that was the case, but if it was, obviously that's another level of fucked up. But to sort of conclude, I just didn't feel right about shitting on someone's death being him, like I understand, like I said, with Chavez or Hitler or like people like that, serial killers, when they die, you could have a bit of joy that's connected to the fact that they won't be hurting other people. But like Maradona, to me, he just fucked himself up, So why, like me, the response I had from someone that doesn't like Maradona, he died, I was just like, man, I feel sorry for him. And then that was it, man. Like, I didn't have an energy strong enough to like go and like just do some vile shit. And I know most people that are posting this stuff online, they're not doing like, I think a lot of it has to do with the effect of social media that wants people to be fucking just vicious about shit, and the more impactful that you can be is like the stronger your voice is, but that ain't me. And I don't know if this comes as a surprise for the English speaking audience, but in the Hispanic, Latin, South American, Spanish speaking world, you do see this divide between the people that love Maradona and the people that hate him. So, obviously you can understand why people hate him, right? Like, there was another point on this, which was the fact that it was a huge, for like the burial and the whole ceremony when someone dies, and the casket, people go see him and stuff. It was huge, like in Argentina. I mean, this was huge, the amount of people, right? And even the president, like, supported this type of massive ceremony. So there were some critiques regarding, like, well, there's people that are dying of, what's happening in the world, and their family members cannot even be with them when they're dying. So they die alone because There's restrictions. In Argentina, they're very restrictive with this with the situation at the moment. But then this person dies, and because of who he was, they allow, millions. Well, I wouldn't say millions, but hundreds of thousands of people to go and like massively get together, right? So I do understand that part, even though I was mentioning, I don't understand why you want to hate on this person that passed. I do get why people would get mad about that topic. Now, for the people that hate him and don't understand, like, how can anyone, like, have this person as an idol and, and love him, there are things that you also need to see on the other side. Like, this guy came from a very poor background. He achieved so much, and he made it possible for poor people in Argentina to, like, that if they played good enough football, they could fucking get out the slums, He gave inspiration to so many people. And when he came back to Argentina, from what I also read, he allegedly helped a lot of people, like in the hood. He gave back to the hood. So, you can't scratch that away. Like, that's also a thing. And on the other side, and this is why it sort of becomes like not just an Argentinian idol, but a world idol. When he came to Europe, he played in Barcelona at the beginning, but he had an injury, so he didn't really do much in Barcelona. He then went to Napoli, who's, is the team in Naples. And this was a team that really didn't achieve much. They were sort of towards the bottom of the roster. And then Maradona took them to the top, and they won cups. They won the league, which was, so he became like an idol in Naples. And from what they say, after Sunday's game, for Sunday to Thursday, he will go with Naples gangsters and party, and who knows what level of party. But I'm pretty sure they were pretty fun parties, But he had this lifestyle, right? Remember that south of Italy is very similar to, and this is from people that I've met, it's very similar to Latin. I mean, they are Latin too, because Latin people think Latin only sometimes relates to South Americans. Latin is all languages that originate from the Latin original language, right? And that includes France, Portugal, Spain, Italy, and believe it or not, Romania. Romanian's language, the origin is Latin. So many words in Romania are actually similar to Spanish because of that, which is a weird thing, and didn't know that until recently. But in any ways, south of Europe and south of Spain too is very much like people in South America. I wouldn't say exactly, but they're closer to, So, Diego Maradona going to Naples, I mean, it's a perfect match. He wanted to party. He was in a place that was very warm, like people-wise. I mean, it's also warm weather in the summer, but it was, I'm pretty sure it was a good party, but, maybe not the best decisions if you accumulate it for many years. But they loved them. They have statues over there. I mean, people in Naples and in southern Italy, they just love them, because of the emotions. And people have to understand that sports can really cause emotions. Can really, I remember watching this movie about Nelson Mandela in South Africa, the Morgan Freeman movie, which, by the way, I mean, who else could have played Mandela better than Morgan Freeman? I mean, by the way, that was a fucking amazing movie with Matt Damon, who was the rugby captain of the team. That movie shows you the power of sports, right? Because sports sometimes might seem vain, might seem like, yeah, it's just a fucking bunch of people running one side to put it in one basket and come, or, go through a goal. And it's like, sometimes I even see it as like, why people like on this shit so much. And there are toxic parts of it, especially in football in Europe. You know, you have hooligans and people that go crazy over it. But there is a legitimate passion that comes from it when it's steered positively that really like lingers in people, you know? And in that, Nelson, I can't remember what's the name of the movie, but you know which one I'm talking about. Morgan Freeman, Matt Damon. It's about apartheid, and when Nelson Mandela got out of almost 30 years in prison, I think 27 years, he got out. Apartheid ended. He became president or prime minister of South Africa, and then the sports of rugby, which was mainly played by white South Africans, right? That's where the like racist conflict comes from. They won the World Cup, the Rugby World Cup, when Nelson Mandela came, and the whole story united a country, you know, and like black South Africans and white South Africans united. And I don't know what's the situation today and if it's really improved racially, but that definitely was a step towards improvement and, you know, coexisting with one another. But anyways, if you haven't watched that movie, you gotta watch it. But in general, just sports, you know, like what it does to people, you know, like I remember, well, I don't remember because I wasn't there, but I remember watching movies of the hockey games between the USA and the USSR or Russia at the time when the Cold War was happening, and the USA, I think, beat them in Russia in hockey. And I don't know if it was played in Russia too, or maybe that part that's not correct. But the fact is that went above and beyond sports, right? It was like literally the two countries sort of battling it out in that game, which happened also in chess. Bobby Fischer, right? There's a movie about it with the guy that did the original Spider-Man. Can't remember his name right now. But he plays Bobby Fischer, who was an American chess player who beat the Russian guy. And, you know, it's a movie about him because he had some crazy faces. And it's actually a sad story from what I understand, you know, if you watch the movies. Bobby Fischer was, you know, he had issues too, so that. But it seems like if you play chess, I mean, you gotta have some. If you're good at it, there's gotta be something wrong with you that makes you fucking another level, right? And I recently saw this series in Netflix, which you have to watch, The Queen's Gambit, right? And it's about chess, and you know, I mean, if you haven't seen it, see it before you listen to this, even though I'm not really going to, I don't think it will be a spoiler, because what I'm gonna say is not gonna invalidate you watching it, because it's just a great series. But if you sort of want to be fresh, then you might want to stop here, watch it, and then come back, because there are gonna be some spoilers, I would assume, if you want to look at it that way. But the movie, I fucking was, it's like a long movie, right? It's like a 7-series mini series, and it's fucking amazing. To start off, and I've mentioned this before with the review that I did for the Barbarians. Well, actually, no, Barbarians, I reviewed it on my Spanish podcast. If you speak Spanish, make sure that you listen to El Podcast de Kiko, which is on my music page, Kiko Cervantes. And on that channel, you can listen to other topics that I do in Spanish, and it's a bit of a different format, so you might like it. But I reviewed Barbarians at one point, which is also on Netflix, which is also great. And one of the things that I loved about that is that it's 6-7 episodes, and that's it, man. It's right to the point, cut to the chase, give me the fucking story. The Queen's Gambit, the same thing, man. 7 episodes, and this shit is fire, man. It's fucking amazing. And what I loved about it, you know, it has to do with this girl. She's an orphan, and she learns how to play chess with the janitor of the orphanage. And she becomes a fucking boss at chess. And, you know, she goes through like the different competitions, beating the different people. She plays against a Russian that's, you know, it sort of parallels Bobby Fischer's encounter with the Russian guy. I don't remember the guy's name at the moment. I should know it. But, you know, if you look for a Russian, you know, best Russian chess player. You're gonna see the name. And pretty much it's about like the story of a hero, right? Of someone that comes from the bottom and now he's here, started from the bottom, now the whole thing fucking here. She does that playing chess. And it was set in the like 1960s. So, you know, back then women were even more disadvantaged. Well, I wouldn't say more disadvantaged. I don't necessarily think women today in first world countries have a disadvantage. But back then it was a different story, right? And the part that I love the most about this series, and this is coming from someone that's always weary about some political agenda being pushed on you, like with LGBT or, you know, racial stuff. Like whenever something's being pushed to just like force diversity or like force a specific agenda politically, I fucking reject it right away. And in this one, you root for the girl beating all the guys because, like I said, this was in the 60s, so women really didn't do certain things that only guys did. And in chess, it's a man's world as well. And when she's fucking beating them and owning them at their game, it never feels pushy. It never feels like, oh, look at this girl that's a hero and you know, she's going against the, you know, patriarch or whatever. No, you always feel like you're rooting for her, and you're like, yeah, fuck those men up. You're a boss, girl. You know, do this shit. You're fucking owning them, and you're rooting for them because it's so organic. It's like organic. You feel like it just clicks. Like she's just a boss ass individual who happens to be a woman. And of course, the women part does play a role because obviously men are like, fuck, she beat me and she's a woman. And that's natural to think, you know. But I'm not saying it's right. But you see the effect of it. And the most beautiful part of it is that the men don't cut her any slack, right? They're like, no, I'm gonna... Actually, because she was a girl, you almost feel like the man wanted to destroy her, right? But when she would beat the individuals, they would respect the shit out of her and like let her know and acknowledge what a boss she's being. So you could feel there is like, isn't that beautiful in a competition that when you lose, this is what was called being a good loser, recognizing that person won. It's such a powerful thing, and respecting that win. Because if you don't, you're not respecting the system, which would give you the same gratification if you were the one who won. I saw this recently on another movie. It's also on Netflix. You gotta watch this movie. It's called Rush. It's a story about Niki Lauda. Niki Lauda, who was an Austrian driver for Formula One. And the story sort of shows you the seasons in Formula One where he battled against James Hunt, a British Formula One driver who also won World Championship like Niki Lauda. And he shows you how that competitiveness, but respect for your rival, sort of like what happens with Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo, where like, I need to be a little bit hostile with you, and sometimes maybe not a little bit, maybe pretty hostile, because I'm fucking competing with you. But when the match is over and shit, maybe then they're not hugging, but they recognize each other's fierce competitiveness. And you see it in the Queen's Gambit. The fact, like at the end of the you know, spoiler, at the end, she, you know, like it's a hero movie. You can predict, like this is not the first time you see a transition like this, because this is an archetype hero story that already exists. It's just, you know, you paint it with different characters, and it's a chess game instead of Gladiator or whatever. But when she beats the Russian guy, the fucking top of the fucking mountain guy, the guy literally goes like, yeah, you got it. You know, and sorry you didn't see this. I did it down here. She shakes, he shakes her hand, or you know, he hugs her, like, and everyone in the room is clapping for her. Man, that fucking movie made me tear up. And not in like a, oh my god, he's so, no, in like a, in a good way, like in a happy way. You know when you tear up for like happiness, which that tearing up is weird because you relate tears to sadness, and when you get that feeling of, oh, you know, like when you watch that movie, Remember the Titans. Oh, fuck, that movie just it hits there, you know. If you want to watch, I think I've recommended this before. If you want to watch a movie that has to do with the racial situation in the U.S. back in the '60s, but told in a very beautiful and righteous way, not politically inclined or anything. Just it's such a beautiful moment. But yeah, you know, they're clapping for this girl when she beats the Russian, and it just felt beautiful that it wasn't like, oh, you beat me, you girl, fuck you. Like, no, it was like they were amazed at it. It's sort of like in Spain when Ronaldinho played in Barcelona against Real Madrid, their rivals. He plays so beautifully. Ronaldinho, you gotta check his highlights in Barcelona. He played so beautifully that when he beat Real Madrid in Real Madrid's home stadium, the fans of the Real Madrid got up and clapped for him. That's unheard of. For the opposite team's fans to fucking clap for you out of respect of how beautiful you played the game. And that's the type of shit that goes beyond sports. It goes more into the human psychic, the human mentality, the way that we work, the human condition. It's such a beautiful thing, right? Whenever I think of how fucked up the world is, it leads me back to how beautiful the human condition can also be, you know? So like I said, watch this movie or series, The Queen's Gambit. It made me fucking want to play chess again. I remember when I was young in Venezuela, I got in the school chess team out of coincidence. I was just passing by one afternoon and one guy was like, oh, you want to play chess? We're teaching people how to play. And I went to a few competitions, but I don't know. I mean, I don't know if I'm good at it. It's a beautiful game when you think about it. Chess, you know, it seems simple, but there's millions of combinations, and it is a game of like war, right? There's a game that I do play that's kind of like chess. It's called Warcraft 3. It's an RPG game, which means not an RPG, an RTS game, which is real time strategy, and pretty much is. You build a base and you start growing an army, and then the other person as well, and then you attack each other, and the goal is to destroy the other person completely. And it's called Warcraft, right? It's the craft of war. And that's what chess is. Chess is two armies going at it, and with different tactics fucking each other up. And it's such a beautiful game, you know. I think I probably suck at it, but that series made me want to start playing again. I mean, it's a good exercise for the mind, obviously. And yeah, I mean, it is a sport, so you are practicing something that should make the way your brain works better. You know, and touching on the video game subject, I kind of like don't like when people talk about video games like just wasting your time, because this game that I play, Warcraft, it's such a game that has to do with strategy and repeating things and improvising on how to attack, how to move. It almost seems like it is training something and exercising a part of my brain that I could use in the future for other things. So, I mean, obviously, I don't think it's healthy for you to play video games all day, all night, all day, all night. What the fuck? But if you play a few hours and you enjoy it and you also exercise and you balance your life, I don't think why it should be a negative thing. You know, I mean, even if you're not gonna be a pro, because you've heard the argument with video games like, dude, you can make millions nowadays with gaming, bruh. And really, not really. Okay, maybe 1% of the people can do it. The rest, you're gonna eat shit. But just the fact that you could release stress and play some video games, I don't see anything wrong with that, you know? And I even think that it exercises the mind. So if anybody's, down talking it, fuck you, dog. It is also a sport. It's an e-sports. But, I was looking into a bit of the story of the Queen's Gambit. And this is a project that's based on a book. And it's actually been almost a decade, if not more, that this project was planned to be done. I think at the beginning it was maybe going to be a movie. Keep in mind that 10 years ago, series wasn't as big as it is today. And this is a fun fact here. That movie or series, I'm not sure if it was going to be a series, like I said, it was going to be directed by Heath Ledger. And it was actually going to be Heath Ledger's director debut. He was going to direct it. And, if you don't know, Heath Ledger passed before he could do this and was an amazing actor. He's the one that did the Joker in the Batman movie, and probably the best. The Joker talk is the debate of which one's the best. I guess it does have to do with which one you grew up with. I would assume that people that grew up with the, back in the day Joker, they would have different connections. But to me, Heath Ledger Joker was amazing. The movie, directed by Christopher Nolan, the whole saga is amazing. But the one where Heath Ledger plays a Joker, that movie transcended superhero movies. And it still had like a typical superhero movie script, with like battles and shit. But the character, was so compelling. And I recently saw the Joaquin Phoenix Joker, which, to be honest, I loved it too. I felt like one didn't shadow the other one, which was something that people feared for. So I don't take anything down from the Joaquin Phoenix. I think it was amazing. One of my favorite Jokers. But my favorite Joker keeps being Heath Ledger. And I don't know why. And you could say that the Joker that Joaquin Phoenix played was even more indie. It was more dark. So that makes it like, whoa, this should be... Because Heath Ledger's was still commercial. It was still a commercial film that had that superhero feeling. Even though it was Christopher Nolan, who's a fucking genius, right? He did Inception, Interstellar. I'm missing one probably. But yeah, it was just greatly made. And the way that the Joker changed it. Because that was the first time that a villain got out of the normal script that you would see in a superhero movie, right? Like, you would see a lot of villains that didn't really have much dialogue. It was more like, I'm the bad guy, and explosions and shit. This was like the first time that I saw a villain go deep into like his psyche and like the way he thought and shit, and the famous lines when he's talking to Harvey Dent in the hospital, right? The guy that becomes the Two-Face guy. And he's telling him he's saying that like when people expect something that's gonna happen, even if it's horrible, nobody panics. But when something happens that they didn't expect, it's like everybody. And then he's talking about how like chaos, like how he loves chaos because like he burns the money, right? Like he doesn't have this desire for money. It's more a desire of just flipping it, like Batman's butler says, I can't remember this guy's name right now, but amazing actor. He says that some people just want to see the world burn, and that's what you got from these Heath Ledger's thing, where like he's like not just a madman, but just like I don't give a fuck, dog, and you felt that, and even at the end when Batman's gonna kill him, he's like, yeah, kill me, dog. This is what I want you to do. And Batman cannot kill him. It's like, fuck. Because Batman is not able to make this motherfucker suffer. right? Because like you would think if I got you by the balls, then you're scared, then I got power over you. And when the Joker, that is exactly what he's looking for. He's looking to be beat up and killed. Then Batman is like, I don't even know how to deal with you. I don't even know how to hurt you. Because hurting you, you like that. And you really felt that. And, you know, when he passed, they asked Jack Nicholson, I remember now, who played the Joker at one point. They told him, like, you know, one of these interviews, like TMC type shit, like, hey, Heath Ledger has passed. Like, you know, what's your opinion on this? Which, you know, by the way, it's a pretty shitty fucking way to approach someone. Like, hey, this person that you might love and care for died. What the fuck you got to say about it? So, but when they asked him that, he said, oh, and I'm paraphrasing, right? He said something like, fuck, I told him to not do that Joker role. Or I told him to be careful with that. Something like that. So there is a stigma that when you do the Joker role, you need to get in this dark place that can even fuck up your mind. And you know, some people think that one of the reasons or one of the main factors why Heath Ledger sadly passed is because, you know, because of like some depression or dark place that he went, you know, when he got in character to do Batman. So, you know, it's heavy how something like that can cause some issues. But, you know, it's going back a bit on the celebrity deaths. You know, when Heath Ledger died, it was a very sad death because it was somebody that was literally coming up. He had the best roles still to be made. And it's so sad when something like that happens, you know? And you know, I kind of felt similar with Robin Williams when he passed. Even though he was older, you felt like, man, the best roles for Robin Williams were gonna come. You know, like whenever you see like Jack Nicholson or Robert De Niro, Al Pacino, now they're doing roles as older men. There's this magic to it as well, you know. There's this beauty to it. But you know, it's a weird phenomena when celebrities die, because there's a connection that people have with the person, and for a while I didn't think that a celebrity passing could affect me, because, you know, I don't know the person. But I remember recently I had a strange one that affected me. And it took me like a while to realize, and maybe I don't even really understand why it affected me. And I'll explain why. It was when Chadwick Boseman passed, sadly. You know, the actor that played the Black Panther, and he played all the other important roles. I have not seen a movie where he played. I barely knew of him. I knew of him because of the Black Panther movie and all the commercials and trailers. And one day I just wake up. I believe I was off that day. I wasn't working. And I went to the bathroom in the morning, you know, just like ritual. You go to the bathroom, you know, start getting freshed up. And I'm looking at my phone. And, you know, as soon as you go on Facebook, you start seeing the post. And then I'm like... And then I read, like, 47-year-old, you know, out of, you know, cancer. And, you know, he kept it a secret for a bit. And he hit me so hard. Like, I didn't even know this guy's movies. Like, I wasn't attached to him at all. But it was something about his age that I was just like, I'm 31 now, and I'm like always having this psychotic fucking episodes where I'm like, fuck, like I'm getting towards the end of life instead of like the beginning, and I gotta accomplish all this shit. And then you read this guy was 47, which is not really that far from my age, and I don't know if it was, I still don't know what it was. I don't know if it was the age. I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was the fact that he was fucking about to blow up and start doing even better, like more deep and more meaningful roles. But man, I remember I cried and I couldn't believe it. I was just like, cause I couldn't believe it, like that I really was crying because I didn't have this attachment, but it just hit me. I was like, fuck, man. And I remember saying, man, that's so sad. Like, it was almost like I got into his state of being and what his family would be going through and what he would be going through, of like, I'm rising in life and then all of a sudden it's taken. And I just thought, like, how sad it is, man. How sad that was. I was just like, man, how sad is this? How sad is this? And it hit me. I was like, fuck, man. That was that. The other one that affected me, but this one was someone that I was attached with artistically, that I did follow, was Anthony Bourdain, And I think that with Anthony Bourdain, he wasn't like this superstar, but the people that really followed him really felt... this guy was just like you could feel he was a beautiful human being. The way that he looked at things, he was like a philosopher, but also a chef. And he looked at life the way that cooks in like a kitchen would look at it. And I have a little bit of a background because my first jobs were like dishwasher, and like having that relationship with what's behind that door that goes to the front of the restaurant. Like, once you go back, it's a different world. It's a dark world, right? It's like, motherfuckers like doing cocaine because the cook has to do 16-hour shifts and shit, and you're like, yo, what the fuck? So it's a crazy world, right? And Anthony Bourdain let you see life through that lens with his own perspective. And that was the first time where I was like, oh, fuck, man. When I was really attached to someone artistically, and then realizing you won't have more content from this person. And I'm not saying it in a like selfish way, like, oh, we need more videos. No, I mean, like, you won't be able to hear this person's opinions in life anymore, an outlook in life anymore, and that saddened me, So yeah, those are the ones that affected me. But I did understand after those situations how people could be so attached to someone, like when Kobe died, I felt that vicariously through other people because I didn't have that connection with Kobe. But I did feel sad in the same way with like Bozeman. It was like, so young, so much in front of him, such a nice energy that you saw him give to people. I'm not a basketball guy, so I'm not gonna like talk shit here and say, oh, I watched him play since I was little, because it's bullshit. But everyone knows Kobe's life, and it was that type of sad. But the connection that people have, and like I said, even though it's just sports, and it could be just movies that the guy does, or it could be whatever, it just gives you this feeling like, that connection, It's crazy how you can have a connection with someone you do not know. I heard someone say that technology has advanced so quickly that our bodies and brains have not caught up to it. So the only way that you would have a connection with somebody, someone that you see constantly and hear constantly, right? And because in the last hundreds of years, like really maybe 100 years, you are able to see and hear people through TV and now through social media, YouTube, whatever, your brain doesn't really differentiate the fact that that's not really someone that you know personally, but more that you're seeing through a screen. But our brains haven't adapted fast enough to that technology. So there is a belief that we can sort of, our brain gets tricked into having this connection with these people because the requirements that need to be met, which is like hearing this person, seeing them, are being met even though they're not physically there or even addressing you directly. So it is a bit of a weird way of looking at it, but it makes sense, you know, that we still have this primitive brain that doesn't really go as fast as technology is going. So our body reacts to certain stimulus in the same way that it would 5,000 years ago, even though this is something that should be absorbed differently. Like your brain should be able to differ, you know, if it's like a celebrity that you don't know, or if it's your father, right? And I guess you kind of do have a different way of going about it, but I just think it's a beautiful part of the human condition that you can have connection with someone that you don't really know directly, but that you have gotten to know them through their philosophy, you know. I mean, this happens with like writers and thinkers that I listen to, you know, like one that comes to mind is like Jordan Peterson or Thomas Sowell. You know, these are, you know, brilliant minds that I feel like I know part of them. And I mean, if you haven't read Thomas Sowell, you gotta read this guy. He's 90 years old, still kicking, still writing, still fucking giving the truth, you know. And I hope he lives 90 years more. I mean, I think those are people that I will be saddened. But, you know, I don't even want to mention this type of stuff. I don't want to bring that upon anyone. I'm just saying, like, I see what could be that little thing that makes people really be saddened by a situation like that, you know. So, you know, leave in the comments below what you think of that phenomenon with celebrities. If you have felt this with a specific celebrities passing, you know, if you have any thoughts about the review of the mini series, the Queen's Gambit, let me know what you think. If you agree with me that it was like a nice movie about women empowerment, but without that negative agenda that's pushy, you know. If you don't agree with that, let me know what you think. And if you have any thoughts on the Maradona situation as well, and your neighbors, if you have any issues with them, if you have a good relationship with them, if you think you should be friendly with them or keep them at a distance so that they don't fuck around and think it's all fun and games. So, you know, let me know. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Always happy to share my fucking stupid ideas with you, and hopefully you enjoy my rambling today. I will be with you very soon on another episode of the Broski Doodles podcast. And once again, thank you for tuning in and listening. So have a good day, good afternoon, good morning, good weekend, whenever you're listening to this, and see you in a bit. Peace.